Hey everyone, I'm Dylan Mitchell, and this is the Rincon Horizons podcast. This show is about leadership, what it really takes to grow, to adapt, and to reach the summit over the course of your leadership journey. Our goal is simple: to help you lead better so your organization can climb higher. Welcome back to the Rincon Horizons podcast. We're picking up right where we left off with Rincon Aerospace managing partner Todd Tuttle and Tom Yeaton, president of Yeaton Financial Group.
Tom, if you look back in your career, I'm pretty new in business relative to you, your business. Dylan's pretty new in business too. But if you look back over the decades of experience in your business and you could change, well, what are some things you would have done differently? And what are some things you've actually done right that you'd say, gee, I really nailed that one?
The one thing that I got right was I married up. If it wasn't
yes, you
Tammy,
did. That's absolutely true. I know Tom's wife, Tammy, and I can vouch that you did.
And Dylan, I trust you can say
As did I.
Yes.
Yes. If I've seen a lot of very talented business people fail because they didn't get the support of their spouse, but at the same token, I've seen some very talented, successful business people at the expense of their families. I've had a client tell me, "Your wife is your secret sauce." I said, "Well, I know that, but thank you for telling me." So that's the one thing I did right, was married Tammy. And, she wasn't always in the business with me, but I always had her support. So that's critical, I think, in any business ventures, to have support of your spouse, your significant other, your close family. The other thing I think I would have done differently is manage my time a lot better. And Dylan, you addressed this with let the business consume you. I think you said I had a business coach that would draw a circle on a whiteboard, a big old circle. And then inside that circle, he'd draw a smaller circle. And he said, "You know what this is?" I went, "Well, no, what, you're the coach. What is it?" And the big circle, he would say, "For most of us, it's business. And the little circle is our life." Mm-hmm. So in other words, I struggled with being in the moment. When I was at a ball game watching my kids or being with my family, my mind was in the business. If I was in the business, I felt guilty and shame because I felt I wasn't spending enough time with my family. And he said, I thought he was going to tell me about how to reach my target market. He did all of that, but he started with the mindset issue. And that's the most important. And we need to flip this script. The big circle should be your life. The little circle should be your business. That's what fuels the bigger picture. And the tool that he gave me to do that is a concept called periodization. And periodization is not a new term. It was developed in the 50s and 60s by a Russian physiologist named Leo Matveyev. In essence, it was designed to optimize athletic performance using long-term training plans into smaller manageable cycles. At the beginning of the year, we have New Year's resolutions. Why is it that after about 2 or 3 weeks they're gone? It was because we think we have 12 months to get these things accomplished. We let ourselves off the hook. So periodization divides a year into 4 90-day periods. My coach called them 90-day wonders. That's all I focus on. All you focus on is 90 days. That's the year. And then after that 90 days, you got another year. So each year is like 4 sub-years. But then we divide each day into 4 different themes. One is red tape day, which is administrivia. The other one is blue sky, which is working on your business, not in your business. Third is the green machine, which is you are in your business and jamming. And the fourth one, which is the most important, is what we call mellow yellow. Mellow yellow is the day you check. You're not in your business. You're in your life. You're with your family. And every day, if you saw my calendar, it's color-coded. And every day, I know that I'm going to be working on developing financial plans. Or tomorrow, I'm focusing on a meeting with clients. These past 2 days, I've had 8 meetings. I can't do that every day. So it's all about focus on what matters the most on that particular day. Don't feel guilty about where you're not, because you know that for these next 4 days or next week, I've got a mellow yellow week because I'm going to focus on being with my family. And that has mentally freed me up more so than being financially independent through the business.
That's phenomenal advice.
Great advice. Tom, I know we talked about your family a bit, but maybe a question about that. A lot of entrepreneurs involve their families in their business, their spouse and their kids. You have really leaned into that. What have you learned about running a business with your family and the people closest to you? And what advice would you give people considering a similar kind of thing, doing business with their family?
Tread carefully. Yeton
Yeah.
didn't enter in my business until 7 years after I started the business. It's only after I've went through 4 or 5 different assistants and realized they were either stealing time from me or just not vested in my success.
What a cool piece of advice. Employees that are invested in your success. And maybe that's a way to think about why family members are so key to your business. And we've all seen that probably when we tried to work with people that are just not invested in your success. So, so great advice right there. So
Right.
that's a good thing.
Thank you. And a lot of people can't work with their wives. They say, I can never work with my wife. Well, Todd, we work out of a house. We have a brick and mortar offices that we can meet clients in. But because of COVID, one of the few bright spots, we now work virtually for most of the time. Her office is down the hall, next bedroom. We turn into an office. And I see her in the morning. I see her at lunchtime. I see her at the end of the day. This is like any other workplace. We have a job to do, and it works for us, but it doesn't work for all spouses. But like I said earlier, whether your spouse is working with you or not, you got to have support. You got to have the support. And then when Ryan came on board after he was in the Marine Corps for 8 years, it's kind of funny. I had been in the business for about 15 years, 14, 15 years when he came on board. You know what he asked me? When he got out of the Marine Corps, I asked him, so what do you want to do? Do you want to go in? He was in satellite imagery, so I thought he might become his own financial or air traffic controller, that kind of thing. We had contacts. He says, well, I was thinking about maybe joining the family practice. And I said, well, that sounds great. So then his next question was that funny question in that movie Office Space. He says, I just have one question. I said, well, sure. What is it? He says, what exactly is it that you do? 16 years. He doesn't know what I do for them.
You needed to have hired Dylan to promote your business, Tom.
Oh, man. Talk about a marketing problem. Anyway, so he bought into the mission and it's all working. And he worked remotely, of course, out of his house. But when you bring on a family member, be professional. This was like when I did mention this. Another mistake I made early on was I got sidetracked with real estate back in just before the Great Recession in 07 and 08. Terrible timing. I learned to keep my day job from that. But one of the bits of advice I got from there was always have an end game with no matter what you do, whether it be a project, a house, a business, always have an end game. It's a succession plan. And be careful at renting to family or close friends, because they have a tendency to take advantage of you and not pay the rent. It could happen in business as well. You enter in a professional agreement, have it in writing. We did, job description, the whole bit, with an agreement that if it doesn't work out, here's the process of exiting that. That will protect you from future awkward, intense holiday and birthday gatherings with family because you had to fire your cousin or your in-law.
Wow. I guess no one really, unfortunately, thinks about the side of it that can get messy until it does get messy. And then it's leading from panic instead of leading from a place of established plan. Moving right along, one of the segments we come back to every episode is the Rincon Corner. The Rincon Corner is about a turning point moment, a pivot, a hard lesson, a mistake that changed the direction of your career and shaped you as a leader. So with that in mind, Tom, do you have a Rincon Corner?
I just touched on it. Yes, I do. Well, several. Keep the main thing the main thing. Stay in your lane. And none of these quotes are mine. They come from business coaches or books I've read. But try not to get distracted by the shiny object or FOMO, fear of missing out. My clients are distracted all the time with AI and social media. Everyone now feels that they can be an expert on financial plan. And there's a lot of information out there. And with that, there's a lot of ignorance. It's not just the information itself. What do you do with that information? When you made that decision to go into that business, be in a business that you're familiar with. And if you're not familiar with it, then take a long time to study it, become a student of that business. When you get into the business, become a student of the industry. Never stop learning. When it made the difference for me, and this goes to an earlier question that Todd mentioned about early on, make that transition. I liken to the Spanish explorer was Cortez, Hernan Cortez, whatever, back in 1519. He was the one that conquered the Aztec Empire in what we now know as Mexico. You know how he did that? You probably heard this term before. When he arrived, he burned his ships. He scuttled all of his ships in the harbor. So there was no path for retreat. His men absolutely had to move forward. I think that where I find is that a lot of folks, when they get into business, they give themselves a path of retreat. And I get that because you're scared, but have the mindset of no retreat, that dedicate all your energies to being successful. Then failure has no option.
Failure is not an option.
Failure is not an option. Burn the ships.
Burn the ships.
Sorry. We've got one more recurring segment on the show. It's called Rincon Recommendations. We've kind of expanded this segment beyond just books. It used to be just a book recommendation. But because leaders don't learn from books alone anymore, they learn from podcasts, newsletters, blogs, conversations. Just the idea that the input that we have shapes the way that we think. Todd, with that in mind, we'll start with you. What's something you've been learning from lately?
I use something called the Aviation Week Information Network, or AWIN. I use it every day. When I talked about Aviation Week before, probably anybody in aerospace knows Aviation Week is a magazine. AWIN is a lot more than a magazine. They've got analysis. They've got just incredible insights. If you're in aerospace, if you're working in this industry, you really need to subscribe to AWIN. There's all kinds of levels and ways you can subscribe to it. Couldn't recommend it any higher than I do. It's just a great service. I'll put a link in the show notes.
Perfect. Tom, same for you. What's a book, podcast, blog, newsletter, anything like that that you'd recommend to the leaders listening today? And no bonus points if you mention our podcast.
Well, that goes without saying. I will tell you that this is the only podcast I actually listened to, especially recently.
Hopefully you learned something. I don't know if we've taught anything.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I will confess, though, I'm a baby boomer. I'm not so much a podcast person as I am a reader. I recommend to my clients what I would do myself, and that is don't do the doom scrolling of financial media. I call it financial pornography. They publish what they think people want to hear, and all it does is get people worked up and depressed. I subscribe to 1440 Daily Digest in Business, and there's two. It's called 1440 Daily Digest for just news without commentary. It's just the news. You draw your own conclusions. It's usually about a 3 or 4 minute read. And then 1440 also publishes a business and finance. It's a daily thing. I think it's even a free. I like free. There's an industry-wide, I like the Sevens Report by a guy named Tom Yeaton. I also love our daily bread devotionals. I've been doing that every day. The Bible, of course, that goes without saying. But I would recommend too, again, going into business, there's some classics out there that make a difference. I don't care what business you're in, but if you don't know how to win friends and influence people, you're not going to be successful. So Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People is one of the first books I read early on, and I've read it a couple of times since then. Also, Stephen Covey's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, profound. It was a game changer for me. And I read that when I was working for Eastman Kodak back in mid-90s. That planted some seeds for my transition to business.
Great recommendations, Tom. And we'll put all those in the show notes. And Dylan, what about you? What do you recommend?
I've actually this was a Christmas gift that I got 2 years ago. So that's how long it's taken me to come back to this one. Lately, I've been spending a lot of time in a book called Logos That Last by Alan Peters. It's a strong look at what makes a brand mark hold up over time, not just visually, but kind of conceptually. I'm a big believer in studying people who are kind of doing the work you want to do. And Alan's one of those for me, someone that I admire. It's also one of those books that I can come back to when I'm stuck, just to kind of reset my eye and get moving again. Helps me get unstuck and also doesn't give me some bias. I don't want to steal someone's idea. So I can look at this and be like, oh, you've already done something very similar to this. Let me not do that. Great book. We'll toss that link in the show notes as well.
Dylan, it's not stealing if you give them credit, and then you can call it research.
This is true. This is true. Well, isn't it Steve Jobs that said great artists steal? I think that was Steve Jobs.
Yeah, probably.
All right, Todd, before we wrap up, any final thoughts you'd want to leave leaders listening today with?
I'll just finish by saying thank you to Tom for coming on, giving us some great advice. So many good things. I go back to, I'm thinking over the things Tom said, but the basic advice of just save some money. Don't get so wrapped around, is it this investment or that investment? Especially when you're young, just put some money away in a couple different places. So really, really good advice, Tom. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for all the advice, and thank you for your friendship that we've had for so long.
That's more important to me.
Tom, before we let you go, same question for you. We want to give you the final word. Any final thoughts for the leader who's on the fence right now, maybe the person with the idea, the experience, the credibility, but who's still waiting for the right moment to make the leap?
I would say don't wait for the perfect day because it won't arrive. Vince Lombardi said, no one is perfect, but pursuing perfection will bring excellence. So when you get to the point where you can't see yourself going back, take the plunge. The timing may not be great. It usually isn't. I took the plunge the year before the .com bust, and the year following that was 9/11. It was the worst possible time. The timing doesn't matter. You make it the right time. It's what you do.
Wow. That's good.
Make it the right time. That's really good advice.
There's so many good show titles in this.
It's going to be hard to pick one. I'm just sitting here thinking about what are we going to call this episode?
I've researched all of that. None of that's mine. I just don't remember who I got them all from.
If you want to learn more about Tom and Yeaton Financial Group, you can find him at yeatonfg.com. That's YEATONFG.com. Or connect with him over on LinkedIn. We'll have those links in the show notes as always. But Todd, thank you so much. And thanks to everyone for listening. Every episode of Rincon Horizons is about unpacking the decisions and disciplines that shape us all as leaders at work, at home, and everywhere in between. Our goal is simple: to help you lead better so your organization can climb higher. If today's conversation challenged you or encouraged you, share it with someone who's thinking about making the leap. You can also learn more about Rincon Aerospace or connect with Todd through the links in the show notes or at rincon.aero. That's RINCON.aero. I'm Dylan Mitchell. You can learn more about my work at dm.supply. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time on Rincon Horizons.